Union officers noted the grandeur of plantation houses, such as the plantation home of William A. Smith off Brogden Road, then known as River Road, and some decided they should not be left standing. Fortunately, this home was left standing. However, Thomas Atkinson's stately home, also on the River Road, and built for his bride Patty Richardson in 1859, was burned to the ground. After watching the family's imported furnishings smashed, Tom Atkinson asked that his orphan niece Mary Elizabeth's prized Steve piano be spared. In response, soldiers carried it outside, set it under a tree, and hacked it to pieces. Union soldiers made 4 attempts to burn the house, and each time Atkinson and his slaves put out the fire. A Union officer came on the scene and insisted, "No damned rebel shall be left with such a home," and the Atkinsons watched as it was finally engulfed in flames. The Agrippa Michener mansion would have met the same fate if a Union officer had not paid a visit to Michener's young widow, Fanny Secor Michener, and recognized her as a childhood acquaintance from New York. She came to Johnston County as a tutor for the Michener children only a few years earlier and married her employer. It was described as one of the grandest houses ever built in this part of North Carolina. 2 local regiments of state militia in eastern and western Johnston were responsible for keeping order at home and protecting soldiers' wives, children, and elderly family members. The Home Guard was a haven for Johnston's numerous pro-Union men who preferred not to fight for the Confederacy, and for planters who did not want to give up management of their plantations and slaves. Desertions were fairly common among Johnston soldiers serving in Lee's Army of Northern Virginia. Some came home to help plant or harvest crops and eventually returned to their regiments. To avoid being apprehended by the Home Guard or by regimental commanders on furlough, they hid deep in the woods and often slept in a hollowed-out log such as this one. Women prepared meals and paid visits to their husbands before dawn to elude authorities. Nathan Tart of southern Johnston County was one soldier who received no mercy when he came home without leave to get in a crop for his young wife and small children. A descendant recalls hearing that Tart was plowing in the field on his farm near Benson when militia officers came up and shot him in the head without warning. They were told to make an example of this young father to discourage other would-be deserters who some believed were jeopardizing the Confederacy's chances of winning the war. Smithfield planter and merchant Seth Woodall, County Clerk of Court Thomas D. Sneed, and Militia Commissary Officer William H. Avera helped to organize a Johnston County Supply Association in October of 1863 to deal with a growing wartime food shortage. It came in part because of the Confederate government's practice of taking or impressing horses, livestock, and provisions for the war effort. The wives and aging parents of non-slaveholding soldiers were particularly vulnerable, since they already struggled to make enough of a crop to survive. According to the Raleigh Standard Weekly on October 28, 1863, the stated object of the association was to supply the indigent families of soldiers and others with the prime necessaries of life at cost, and in cases of entire penury and suffering, free of charge, provided such persons have made an effort to live through their own means and industry.